Hi everyone. Now today I'm taking a look at the Jumper T-Lite, and this is a very inexpensive, fully featured multi-protocol OpenTX radio. And there are two versions of this. One of them does just FrSky and Futaba, and I think Corona and eSky, maybe a couple of other obscure protocols. And then there's another one that has a 4-in-1 module, and that does FrSky, FlySky, Spectrum, and pretty much anything you'd want. So if you want to fly a bunch of different protocols like that, definitely get the 4-in-1 version. But if you're like me and you think you're just going to be flying mostly FrSky stuff with it, then you can get the CC2500 version. And at the time I got this, it was only $66, which is really cheap considering everything that you get with it. And the 4-in-1 version I think is $10 more, so $76. So in both cases, really a lot of radio for the money for sure. Now there are a couple of things that have been kind of controversial about this radio in terms of the module and the 1S battery system. And I'll just touch on those briefly. If you want to learn more about the external module situation, then obviously just go watch the Albert Kim or Gal Kremer's videos, because they go completely in depth on the issue and what you need to do to make a, like say, a Crossfire module work with this. The main takeaway being that you need to keep it at 250 milliwatts and have a good quality 18650 cell in there. But if you do those things, it'll work fine with the included adapter to run a module on here. But I don't intend to run a module, so I'm not too concerned about that. And then when it comes to the battery, you need to supply your own 18650 cell, and you also will probably need to bend these tabs out to get the battery to fit in there properly, but that's not too big of a deal. And then you can see here there's this warning about putting the battery in correctly, because when these first came out, people were under the impression, because of all these warnings, that if you put the battery in backwards, you're gonna fry the system and it's gonna stop working. But that's not entirely true. If you put the battery in backwards, it'll be fine. It's not going to break anything. But if you put the battery in backwards and also then plug it into USB for charging or for USB, then you could have a problem. So there's something there that they need to address, but it's not quite as bad as it first seemed. And thanks to Joshua Bardwell for pointing that out in a post, that it's if you have the battery in there backwards and then plug it into USB where the problem is, but just putting the battery in backwards is not going to destroy it. So something they need to address, but not quite the deal breaker that I thought it initially was. So here, let's take a look at the front of the radio. One of the nice things here, it does have full trim switches, so if you wanted to use this for airplanes or helicopters and you need instant access to trim switches, there they are. And then there's got a tiny little screen, which I'll turn on. So one thing I think you can see as a cost-cutting measure here is that the backlight is just sort of looks like there's just one light in the bottom shining up, so there's a kind of a bright spot on the screen. It's not quite as bright as it looks on camera. It looks a little bit better in real life, but you will kind of see things like that, but it's totally readable. Not that bad. Not that big of an issue. And then here up at the top it has a removable antenna, and then there's a USB-C port which you could use for charging, and also you could use this you could use that to plug into a computer and run this with a simulator, which I tried, and that works great. I think this is a trainer port there, and these are for, I think, attaching some kind of strange external display or something. Oh, and also there was, I think, some people thought these switches are a little bit close together, so that when you have like this one switched up, there's not much room to have your finger in to move this one, and that's kind of true, but you can also find ways of flipping the switches that aren't an issue. I think that's just something that you could get used to. That's not a big deal for me. One thing that might have helped, though, is if they had these little smaller switches like they're on the Beta FPV Lite radio. They have these kind of smaller switches, which might have given people more room. Now, speaking of this radio, though, I think you can see they're really similar, and I'm not sure exactly what the relationship is between these two, but they're obviously very closely related. I don't know if you can see the similarity in shape and even like the size of the battery cover and things. So they came from the same designer or same factory or something, but they're incredibly similar. But if you like this radio and wish it had full OpenTX and better gimbals, then you'll be really happy with this. And it's really not that much more expensive. And if you're just starting out, you might as well just get this one. But yeah, I actually quite like these gimbals compared to like something like a Tango 2. The gimbals on that are really stiff, and you could never get them as loose as these are. And so if you like sticks with low tension, I think you'd really like this radio. And also, I think it works great if you're thumbing. Hold it like this, no problems. And then I think in the last year or so, I've kind of switched over to this sort of pinching or hybrid pinching style. And I think it works great this way too, because it's so light. You only just have to rest it on your two fingers back there, and then can have full access to the sticks. So yeah, no problems there for me. And you notice there is no neck strap or anything, but it's so light. I think that's no problem at all, and keeps it nice and clean on the front. So yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say with this. I've flown it with a few different models. I bound it up to an XM Plus in a Flywoo Explorer and just flew it out about 200 meters, but had no RF issues. RSSI was still like in the 70s or 80s at 200 meters, so didn't seem to have any RF issues in that sense. Flying around with stuff like Nanohawk, no problem. What else? And yeah, I think I will fly this with my Saw Drift at some point, so it's very nice that I can use these trim switches for that. So I think in the end I can really highly recommend this radio, even though it does have these issues with the module and with the battery. But if you know about those things going in, there's just no way you can get, I think, more radio than this for the money. And there are a couple of little additions I've done to mine that I think make it even nicer to use, and I'll show you those now. Okay, so through the magic of editing, you can see I've added a couple of things to mine. So at the top you can see I've just got those little silicone switch covers, and you can get these from Race Day Quads and some other places. And they come in different colors, and these are the yellow ones, and they just give the switches kind of a nice feel. And I get a little extra grip on them as well. And then I've got the TBS honey stick ends on there. Use the M3 versions. And you can see I just use the tops of the honey stick ends, because you can't use the bottom parts, because if you do, it interferes with the stick travel. They don't go all the way to the ends, so that's no good. But if you use it with the included with the stock bottoms and the honey stick tops, then they work totally fine. And I think now with these and these little silicone switches, this has actually almost a premium feel. It's really nice. So yeah, that's how I'm going to be flying mine. And these are pretty inexpensive mods, but obviously little things like this will make it cost more than $66, but I think greatly improve the user experience. And if you want to customize it, personalize it, you can get these in different colors. So that's my initial impression of the Jumper T-Lite. So I'm glad the power issue isn't quite as bad as it initially seemed, although it's something they still need to address. But in terms of the value, and I think the ergonomics of this radio, I actually quite like it. So yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.